As a video strategist, one of my goals for my students is that they could be anywhere, anytime, and feel confident hitting the go live button and still be able to deliver a really high quality message. And because of that, you don't waste time worrying about if you look the part or sound the part or have the right tech or question if your message is strong enough. And I'm not saying every single live video that you do has to be spur of the moment or in random locations or as unplanned as that kind of sounds. But the point is that you have honed your speaking skills enough. You've honed your process for developing clarity around video creation. And also that you just generally feel really proud of the message that you're putting out. You've honed those things to the point where you could hit that button wherever you are, and you do have that option. Because here's the thing, as your business grows and as you get busier and busier, you don't have time to sit there and agonize over a blank page white space for hours and hours on end. You have to make sure the process gets quicker and quicker to be able to bust out content. And this script actually, in fact, was written while I was sitting in a car dealership helping my sister buy her first car. She's here visiting me in Austin. She's going to be moving here. And I just had an extra 10 minutes, 20 minutes to spare. So I was like, all right, let me jot down my thoughts for tomorrow's live. And so it should be that simple, where you could be sitting in a car dealership whenever you got spare time and you could write out your content, no problem. So first off, if you're here watching with me live, drop me a hashtag live, or you can drop me a hashtag replay. And I'm excited for today because specifically we're going to be going through my top 5 tips that I think anyone who's struggling with their lives right now and wants to build confidence around it, we're going to go through those top 5 tips today with examples. And I see a bunch of you are here. So again, let me know you're here and watching. You guys know I always like for these lives to be as interactive as possible as well. So let me know you're here so I can say hey to you too. All right, so we're going to jump in, but question for you guys before we get started is, where are you at right now with your video confidence on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being like it's so low, like you're not feeling confident at all, to 10 being never better. You feel so good. I hope you guys are all at a 10. It's okay if you're not at a 10, but you can let me know in the comments where you're at with that. And we're just going to jump in and start going through these tips right now. So tip number 1 is to keep promises to yourself and to stop negotiating. So I think this one maybe sounds simple, but it is literally the core of like the confidence building piece to all of this, right? So for example, if you set a goal for yourself and you want to go live once a week or once every 2 weeks, right? You're going to set this goal for yourself, and maybe you start out really, really strong and you feel like you're on fire, you're feeling really good. And then things kind of get tough. Maybe your kids get sick, or you have a meeting come up, or you just didn't have time to put as much thought and effort into one of your scripts. And then you start to like negotiate with yourself. Or you're like, oh, well, it's okay if I skip this 1 week. And then the next week's rolls around and you're like, well, it's still not where it needs to be. And you skip another week, and maybe you do 1 week. And so you start to negotiate on like, okay, what is okay, what's not okay. And you negotiate on the goal that you set for yourself, which was going live once a week or going live every 2 weeks. And why this matters so much is because it's not just about, okay, you negotiated. It's that when you are someone who negotiates with yourself, you start to identify as someone who maybe just isn't good at creating content, or maybe you start to identify as someone who just isn't right to be in front of the camera, or you make up whatever kind of excuse you have or whatever new identity that you've taken on because you've negotiated with yourself. And ultimately, you become someone who you don't trust, right? When you don't trust yourself to take action, that is a hard thing to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow, because in business, especially online, there are so many things you cannot control. You can't control how many people show up to your video. You can't control if someone decides to purchase. You can't control if someone decides to show up to a sales call with you. The only thing you can control are your own actions. And if you're someone who is not trustworthy, you can't even control your own actions. You don't trust yourself to follow through, right? There is a huge fundamental problem there. And like, this isn't going to go smoothly, right? You're going to be afraid to set goals. You're going to be afraid to tell yourself that you should try something new because you know that you've let yourself down over and over and over again, right? Let me know if this is something that hits home with you guys. Let me know if this is something you kind of feel, but it is so incredibly important. So what we need to be doing is committing to something realistic. So what I do every single month is for my videos, I commit to a schedule. So for this month, I have like family visiting. And like I said to you earlier, my sister's here, she's going to be moving here. So I'm like, okay, realistically, I can do 3 lives this month. Like I'm going to have to skip a week this month, but that's okay. I'm only committing to 3 on these dates. It is so, I have to follow through on those 3. That is my commitment. So when I'm planning it out, I commit to those 3. I plan the topics for each one, so it's easy for me. And I do that when I am planning like my monthly goals. So usually for me, I have one big day, either at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month, depending on how things look schedule-wise, where I plan the whole month, where I'm like, okay, what events am I participating in? What tasks need to get done? What lives need to happen? What goals do I have? All of that stuff. So include that and include that commit when you are doing some of that planning, right? And so when you you have that commit and then you follow through, what's going to happen is you're going to start to build consistency and you're going to build this incredible momentum. And the more you do something, you guys know this, that consistency is going to breed competency, right? So if you're doing something all the time, you're going to get better at it. It's going to be really hard to get worse at it, right? So your confidence is going to go up. So let me know if this is making sense to you guys so far. You can just drop me a yes. But this is so incredibly important to make sure that we are keeping promises to ourselves. We are people that are trustworthy to ourselves because there is so much that we cannot control. And this is the one thing that we can, right? So this is absolutely huge. Okay, I see a lot of yeses. Cool, I see we have Teresa here live. We got Laura here live. Love it. And I see a mix of numbers. I see some people saying their confidence is at a 5, some people saying 7. All right, cool. We're going to move on to tip number 2 for building confidence. And that is that you got to stop trying to reinvent the wheel every week or every time you try to create your videos, right? And I actually experienced this recently. I'm in the process of doing some updates to like my website and I'm creating a video for it. And I remember sitting there and I was sort of like stumped. And usually this stuff is so fast for me. I'm like, why is this taking me so long? And I realized it was because I was trying to do all this like weird formatting stuff with it and take on a style that really wasn't mine. And I'm like, why am I trying to recreate everything instead of doing what has always worked for me? Right? And so this is what I mean by what has always worked, because maybe you don't have something that's worked yet, but what you need to develop is a flow or a process, right? Or you can call it a scripting framework. So for example, my students in the Video Skills Lab, my private clients, they are always using this script right here, where there are specific things every single live video needs to include, right? They have the hook, they have the crazy not to say promise, the authority builder, call to action, engaging question, and then the actual meat and potatoes content. So my students are busting out scripts every single week, 20 minutes or less, like when they're getting really skilled at it. And the reason is because they don't sit down and kind of mull over the framework, the process of it, how to develop clarity of thought. They already have an idea of and process of how they're going to develop their ideas because they have this framework. So now it's taking the things that are going to help their clients and students and customers and just plugging them into this framework, right? Whereas I think so much time is wasted trying to develop an idea and how you want to present an idea, right? Let me know if that's hitting home with you. And I'll give a really, really good example. In 2019, this feels so long ago now. I didn't even have a business yet, but I wanted to write a book. So I joined this coaching program, and I was, for for that coaching session that we were in, my coach at the time, Azul Charonas, who was absolutely awesome, was talking about how, writing really isn't that hard. People make writing and say writing is really difficult, but writing isn't actually that difficult. And we did this exercise where we essentially took 5 minutes, and he was like, write as much as you can in 5 minutes. Like, put whatever it is. It doesn't have to be good. Just get all your thoughts out in 5 minutes. And so the group sits there and we're writing. And then after the 5 minutes, we count the words. And people were like, I got 800 words. I got 1,000 words. I got 700 words. And after that, he's like, well, listen, words are easy, right? Writing is easy. That's not the hard part. The hard part is coming up with how you want to present your ideas, clarity of thought, clarity of ideas, because you could have all the things in the world that are inside of you to say, but knowing exactly how to present it in a way that is compelling is what is actually the hard part, is what exactly is the stuff that keeps people stuck, right? And so it's the same thing for like this scripting format, right? If you have your format going in, all you got to do is plug those words in that are plentiful into this framework or format. Okay, cool. So that is tip number 2. Make sure you're not reinventing the wheel every week. Have a script, a flow, or a process, and it's just going to cut down on your time so much. And sometimes I'll be honest, like when my students first start using this, it takes them a bit longer. Maybe it's, 40 minutes when they start, but eventually that time, every time you do it every week, that time starts dropping down more and more and more. Okay, we're gonna go through tip number 3 right now. So tip number 3 for building confidence on video is to play the long game. So I know that a lot of my students feel anxious or nervous about their videos because there's so much pressure on one single video, on one single day, on one single moment. And here's the thing, if you are thinking long-term about your video strategy, you're committed to your business, you're committed to using video long-term, one video is literally just one video among hundreds, among thousands that you are going to do. And I'm going to tell you a bit of an embarrassing story that really just helped me kind of learn this lesson. And I think this was in 2020. And this is actually when I was still leadership coaching before I even started this video marketing business. And in 2020, I was running a leadership challenge, and it was the biggest challenge that I think I had ever run. I think at the time it was like over 100 people. I wasn't running ads or anything. It was just kind of like word of mouth and posting in different groups. And for me, someone who started from zero, like, and I like for my first ever video challenge that I ran, I think I struggled to get 20 people signed up. And then to have over 100 people signing up and more people signing up, I was blown away. And for the day one of the challenge, I remember I had like 30 people on there live with me. I had a huge attendance. For me at the time, like this wasn't like a normal thing. Like now I'd be like, oh, okay, 30 people were there. Like that's great. That's awesome. It was great to have that turnout. But it was a huge deal then because I was like struggling to gain momentum. And at the time, what I didn't realize was actually my laptop that I was going live on was not plugged in. And I was in the middle of this live with 30 people on it. And I look at my battery and it's at like 5%. And I did not realize. And the problem was that it wasn't plugged in. So I'm like, oh, shoot, let me just tell them I need to plug it in real quick. And I end up crawling around on my floor of my office trying to plug it in. I go and do that. I come back and I start teaching again. And I realized I see it go down to like 3%. And I'm like, oh, shoot, that didn't work. And I had to go do it a second time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the biggest challenge that I've ever run, the most well attended, and I'm crawling around on the floor. It was probably one of the most like embarrassing moments that I think I've had. But that was one challenge. At the time, it was so pressurized, but that was one challenge, one day one of literally tons and tons and tons that I have done. like in the grand scheme of things, like it just did not matter. And sure, in that moment it mattered because I was thinking about like all the potential people I was losing or money or sales or whatever. But realistically, 4 years later now, like it just did not matter. And it was one experience if you're committed to the long haul. Right. So it's just kind of a funny story that really cemented that idea. So don't sweat the small stuff. That's how you should be going into every single live. Or you're like, I'm going to do so many videos. I'm committed to showing up so consistently that one moment, one experience does not make a difference. What matters is me putting in the reps every single time. Okay, cool. So drop me a yes if this is making sense to you, if this is clicking with you, if you're feeling this. Let me know if you guys have any questions. You can drop them in the chat as well. And we're going to go to the next tip. Okay, number 4, focus on evolution and don't sweat trying to have everything be perfect. And I know that's sort of a common one. I'm going to go through kind of more specifically kind of what that means to me and what I recommend for my students. But I think this can be tough because if you're just starting out or if you're struggling in some way, you kind of want the people that you look up to maybe look or sound or deliver content in a certain way. You sort of maybe want to emulate that. And maybe those people are really far along and you didn't get to see the entire evolution of where they started to where they are now, right? And so you feel like you have to be a similar version of what they are now, when realistically they probably didn't start that way. So when we're thinking about evolution, there's really 3 types of ways we can evolve. So number 1, I would say, is like when we're trying to evolve, there needs to be some component of self-reflection. And for me, I like to use what I call the treadmill method. So the treadmill method is basically where I'm doing something physical. Like usually I'm like walking on the treadmill or on the Stairmaster or taking a walk with my dogs. Something that's like physical to get my energy out, right? So if you have those anxious nerves before live too, walk or run or do something physical as you're thinking about some of your ideas. I find it really helps. But when you're doing this method, number 1, listen back to your lives. So I always, especially when I first started, I would walk on the treadmill or go for a walk and I would listen to my work, listen to the live that I did last week. And I would listen to like how many likes or ums were they, like, was I actually making a lot of sense when I was talking? How much rambling was there? And like starting to listen to the way that I was communicating and kind of be reflective on that. I also would, before live, practice out loud. So I would literally go for a walk and practice what I was going to say out loud. So instead of, me doing this live before, I would literally pretend like I was and go through that process. And those 2 things really helped. Those 2 reflective things really helped me, I think, evolve into creator and speaker that I am now. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is expert mentorship, right? Which means not just taking advice from your best friend in the coaching program that you're in, or your neighbor down the street who watches your live on Facebook, or whoever, like someone who like actually has like been there, done that, and is having success. So for example, in my Video Skills Lab, one of the things that I love about it is every single week we are reviewing scripts on the Zoom coaching calls that we have. We're reviewing scripts. And again, the students who are asking those questions and are getting their scripts reviewed, critically reviewed, are the ones who are the ones that are having success, right? I mean, I don't think that's anything like crazy, like, what's the word? Anything crazy, like, wow, like that's incredible. Like, of course, like if you're the one who's putting in the effort and getting the feedback, you're the one who's going to start to have success. So make sure you have those people who are not just going to yes, and tell you how amazing you are or tell you how terrible it is, but they don't actually have an experience. Find someone who's been there, done that, and make sure that they can give you that critical feedback. So that's the second piece to just evolution. And the last piece is just community critiquing. So make sure that for your videos, like you're reading comments, you can ask for feedback if you're sending out emails to your list or asking for feedback in whatever social platform you're in. And you just want to make sure, again, you're being careful that you are not taking advice from the wrong people, right? So for example, I remember that like when I was first starting out, I would show some of my stuff to like family members or friends, and people would have a lot to say about it because people always have a lot to say about it, whether it was good or it was bad. And most of the time, their opinions literally did not have any type of connection, correlation to how my audience actually responded. So if you're going to take the feedback, make sure it is legitimately from people who are in your audience versus, again, people who just like to give advice and aren't actually your target market. Okay, let me know in the comments. Is this something that you guys have done before? Have you guys asked for feedback or done any of these things that I mentioned in terms of evolution? I'm curious to hear that as well. Okay, lastly, this is a super important one. We're going to end. They're all important, but I in particular think this one is tunnel vision with your video creation is absolutely a superpower. So when I say tunnel vision, I mean the ability to just focus on one thing and not stray off that path, even when distractions come up, even when obstacles come up, even when like self-doubt creeps in. It's that ability to just stay on track. And what it means is that you are focused on behaviors and you are not going to be focused on necessarily results or other things that are coming in. So if you commit to going live every single week and your first 3 videos, maybe they don't go as well as you'd like, it doesn't matter. You focus on every single week, putting the time in, putting the reps in. And here's what I advise for all of my students. Because a lot of times people will come and ask me like, oh, why didn't this video do well? Or why am I not doing better with my videos? And I'm like, okay, let me look at the data. Let me see like how many views do you have? How many comments have you gotten? Let's see that data. And most of the time people do not have enough data. So now in my video skills lab, actually before you ever if you want to have a review of, what, you want to review your strategy and your performance, I should say, not your strategy. If you want to review your performance, like how well you didn't do over the last period of time, you need at least 90 days worth of data, which accumulates to like somewhere between like 12 to 16 videos worth of data where you've been consistent over a period of time for us to look at a result. Right? And most people never ever make it long enough to get enough of that data. And instead what they do is they make assumptions about why it's not working. So maybe they get 2 or 3 videos done, or maybe 5 videos done, but it's not at least 90 days worth, and it's not significant enough for us to draw conclusions. So they make assumptions like, oh, I think I need to invest in better tech. Or, maybe video is just not right for me, or maybe I should actually be going live on a different platform, or maybe, I should change my call to action, or maybe I need to create a PDF. And they come up with all these ideas and they get super distracted. And again, the people who are having success are the ones with tunnel vision. They're committed to the strategy, they're committed to the behavior, they're committed to taking action, and ultimately committed to gathering enough data that they can then review and make a conclusion on. But again, business, it can be a wild emotional ride with these high highs and these low lows. And it's so easy to get carried away and make these emotional decisions. So being able to have that tunnel vision is absolutely huge in growing your confidence. And like, I remember when I first started going live, my mantra was always, and you know what, it still is, it does not matter to me if 0 people show up or 100 people show up. The most important thing to me is that I am consistent. I am keeping promises to myself. I am, I am gathering data. I am someone who is trustworthy. And I know I'm 100% confident. And I have that tunnel vision that if I continue to take these actions over and over, there's no way I'm going to get worse. I'm only going to get better, and I'm going to get results because I'm taking those behaviors. I'm taking those right steps, and I'll have enough data to adjust if I need to, right? So let me know if this mindset is making sense to you. Comment tunnel vision. Let me know if this is kind of clicking for you. But this is absolutely huge, huge, huge to make sure that we are gathering enough data, staying rock solid, focused, and moving forward from there. All right, so we have busted through all 5 of these tips. Let me know below, like, what has been your biggest takeaway? Let me know what's been the most helpful thing for you. I hope that you're starting to feel like a little bit empowered just from listening to some of these things. And if you want me to personally help you, then make sure, and you're not in the Video Skills Lab, make sure you join. It's $9 a month, and you literally get access to my library of 50 plus trainings. We have 2 Zoom coaching calls every single month. We have every week a video, a live video where I answer your questions, review your scripts. You have access to our community. The link in the description of this video is you're going to be able to join. You can look up all the details about it. But whether you join or not, I hope that you feel super empowered leaving this video, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.